You were inside there. We could hear it, but you could see it. What is your big takeaway from today?
Well, it was obviously a historic moment. I think that's how people treated it inside the courtroom from the very beginning. President Trump's lawyer actually went into the courtroom. He sat on the wrong side initially. He wasn't quite as familiar with the court as his adversary, Michael Dreeben, the special counsel's lawyer. And it was really two contrasting styles, and I think that's reflected already in some of the early reporting, making it seem the strident Trump made a lot of points. That lawyer was very strident in contrast to the special counsel, who acted almost like a counselor to the court, not as an advocate, went on for hour after hour explaining his position. At the end of the day, I think if I had to count votes, and, I've seen over 400 oral arguments at the Supreme Court. It's often hard to predict, and I think this one is a bit hard to predict. But I think some things came out. Number one, Donald Trump's claim that he is absolutely immune from the criminal law, I think got pretty much nowhere with the majority of the court. You had Justice Barrett saying, in response to the special counsel's lawyer saying this would put the president above the law, and it would be radical, she said, I agree. That was toward the end of the argument. You had the Chief Justice raising concerns about this as well, along with Justice Sotomayor, who began the argument by saying, look, you told the lower court if your argument is true, Navy SEAL Team 6 could go out and assassinate the rival of the president under a presidential order, and that would be okay. Justice Sotomayor said, are you still sticking with that? And the answer was yes. Then Justice Kagan said, does that mean the president could launch a coup or order the military to launch a coup? The answer was yes. Justice Ketanji Jackson, toward the end of the Trump lawyer's argument, said, wait a minute, you're saying that I understand you're concerned about the president being attacked with frivolous prosecutions, but what about the concern on the other side that the president is above the law? So I saw at least 5 votes for that central proposition that a president is not absolutely immune from the law. He did get some support from Justice Kavanaugh, who talked about a Justice Scalia opinion 25 years ago, and from Justice Alito, but I don't think it commanded the majority of the court. Here's where I think that the decision is going to go. The Trump team had 2 fallback arguments. One was this idea that every statute has to say, something is a crime, and by the way, the statute applies to the president. That got some purchase, again, particularly with Justice Kavanaugh. I don't think it'll get a majority of the court. Justice Barrett pointedly said that's ridiculous. There are only 2 or 3 statutes in the entire federal code that mention the presidency. We shouldn't require that. The other thing is this compromise that says, look, there are some acts that are private, not official, and as to those, the president doesn't have immunity. I think the members of the court were somewhat surprised with Trump's lawyer's answer to that in the first part of the argument, when he admitted that some of the allegations in the indictment were private acts not subject to immunity, like launching a list of fake electors and the like. Several justices raised their eyebrows right when that happened. The special counsel's lawyer, Michael Dreeben, picked up on that and really hammered the point home. And I can tell you it took a while, but at 11:55, almost an hour and a half into his argument, he was chilling. He talked about the allegations in the indictment that Trump took the Justice Department, tried to get them to issue false letters to different states about the election problems, that those lawyers refused, and that Trump then threatened to fire them. At that moment, you could hear a pin drop in the courtroom. It was like everyone was focused on exactly that. And so if I had to predict where the court's going to go, I think they're going to focus on that and say, look, that's absolutely not immune. That is what the criminal law is all about. We can't countenance that kind of behavior. Now, if you're talking about other things that are within more core presidential duties, then it's a very different matter. The question, the hard question, is how long is all this going to take? The court could issue an opinion as early as tomorrow, frankly, that says we're not going to go further into all these complicated issues, but just leave it at that and start this trial. Or they could take months, write a convoluted opinion that's got to be interpreted by the district court, with, more and more proceedings and argument and briefing, and then that could delay the trial past the election. It's all in the court's hands.
Neil, I want to ask you about that and bring Joyce in as well, because there was the view by several of the justices that it could be remanded to the district court, which would take a lot of time to determine what is an official act and what is a private act. And once they seem to be agreeing that official acts could have immunity and that truly private acts could not, if they had to argue all over again what is official and what is private, that's a district court argument, a district court pretrial hearing, then that can be appealed, and then you get all the way back. And I believe, Neil, you and Joyce are the experts on this, that those writing dissents are given, as they were in Dobbs, are given the time to write their dissents. So this could go to the end of the term, which is the end of June, the beginning of July. Neil, then you, Joyce.
Yeah, I think that's right. So basically, I think the way the rules work is they're going to go vote right at lunch and decide the case. The majority opinion will be assigned. If someone's dissenting, the senior justice will, in the dissent, will be able to authorize whoever writes that. And traditionally, the court has given a lot of leeway for the dissents to take as much time as you want. Here, I think the chief understands probably the timing here and will try and push for the dissents to be done early. But, this could take a while, and that is clearly the Trump strategy. I mean, the Trump lawyers spent so much time on absolute immunity, but it was very clear about midway through the argument that what he really wanted was this compromise option, and he was even said, send it to the district court, not to the Court of Appeals, because if you send it to the Court of Appeals, that would truncate the proceedings, make it happen a lot more quickly.
This is a major delay issue. Joyce,
Well,
just jump in.
It is a major delay issue, and Justice Barrett, or rather Judge Chutkan, has already told the defendant that there are about 81 days left on the clock, 81 more days for trial preparation, even after the case is returned to her. Now, that would provide her with time to make decisions, say, about the distinction between what acts were official and can't be used and what acts were private and can be used. But beyond that, even if the decision is made, and I think Neil's assessment is a very good one. Obviously, you count votes better than anybody else. If this case goes to trial on a theory that says that only private conduct can be the basis for a prosecution, there are difficult evidentiary issues that the justices hinted at in the argument today. Michael Dreeben, arguing for the special counsel, wants to be able to use evidence of official acts like decisions about who can be the attorney general or the pressure campaign against Mike Pence as evidence of Donald Trump's knowledge and intent. All of this involves more delay, more consuming time before a trial.
And Katie and Chris, you know that we're in such a time of polarization, but this has always happened out here in front of the court and in front of Congress. You have protesters, and that's what we have here today.
Of course, but what I find interesting about that particular sign behind you, Andrea, is that it's, directly out of Donald Trump's mouth. That allegation of fake news, was coined by Donald Trump, and that's what's repeated, which makes it interesting that we're talking about election interference in January 6th today, because it's all about what sort of influence Donald Trump had. I want to ask you about remanding it back down.